The United Nations is seeking almost $4.5 billion to fund humanitarian operations in Afghanistan. Drought and international sanctions imposed following the Taliban's seizure of power has exacerbated an already perilous situation. The appeal is the largest the UN has made for a single country and is 3 times the amount requested last year. Afghanistan has suffered 4 decades of conflict and more recently successive drought. 60% of its people are going hungry. Sanctions have stopped the salaries of tens and thousands. Afghan families are selling their belongings to put food on the table. For more on this, we can now cross live to London, where Arise correspondent Lape Olarinoye joins us now. Lape, thank you very much for joining us on Newsday. Now, more than 7 months since the Taliban seized power and life for Afghans appears to be getting worse. Please tell us more.
Hi, good afternoon to you all, ladies. Well, yes, it is getting worse. And I think the worst part of this entire saga is the fact that the Afghan civilians, the everyday people, are the ones getting caught up in this terrible crossfire. I mean, as you said there in your intro, from a nationwide starvation. 60% of the population are currently suffering from, or dealing with, should I say, starvation. Children are dying every day, about 14,000 children. In fact, that figure's wrong. I should say 14 million children have allegedly, newborns that is, have died this year already, which is quite staggering. And that's according to Al Jazeera. And even worse from that, people are also suffering not only kind of a humanitarian issue where there's widespread starvation, but there's also a lack of jobs. Many people have been pulled out from their work because it clashes with the rules and morals of what life is like living under Taliban rule. 60% of the population is said to not be in work, and that includes people that work in media outlets, women particularly. Children have been pulled out of school. So there is, a severe crisis happening in Afghanistan, one that we've known for the last 7 months, but actually seems to be getting worse. And let me just quickly paint how bad that picture is for you. Families are said to be selling their children because that's how desperate they are to feed their families. Families are also said to be selling their organs just so they can get a meal or two for their large families. Parts of families who have fled the country at the beginning of the takeover have now left other members to be breadwinners. And of course, that makes the situation for many Afghan families really, really harsh. And the problem only seems to be getting worse.
And it seems the Taliban government is clearly exacerbating this crisis through their actions. And of course, the U-turns that they have been engaged in. Could you tell us more about this?
Absolutely. When the Taliban took over, however, there were stipulations set by the international community, and that they would only offer help if they stripped down some of their really extreme, harsh rules, particularly against women and children. Some of which the Taliban kind of left leeway for. But now it seems as though they're making several U-turns on that. And the biggest one so far is the fact that young girls of secondary school age are now no longer allowed to go to school. Of course, that's a huge blow to all the funding that's supposed to come in from the World Bank. They've also declared that men who are working must now have a beard. Really, really stringent rules are being put in place, one which the Taliban gave the assurance that that wasn't going to happen. And so that it encouraged more Afghan people to stay in the country and continue their lives. But of course, that's a stark difference. On the flip side, the leader of the Taliban is saying that he wasn't consulted. And so a lot of these agreements were made in his absence. Whether that's true or not is something that we don't know just yet. But one thing is clear, however, is that the Taliban isn't changing their rules to appease anyone but themselves.
Well, Lape, it's quite evident that this is not only a humanitarian crisis, but it's also an economic one. What has been the response from the international community?
Well, as I said earlier, this is not just a humanitarian crisis because we're seeing widespread starvation, famine, droughts and so on. But we're also seeing people unable to get back into work. So even the foods that are on the shelf, people can't afford to buy it. People can't afford to purchase food to feed their families. So the two are intertwined really horribly. But the international community has come to the support of Afghanistan. If we look at the terms of in countries like the UK, Germany, and parts of Europe, who have accepted refugees into the country, but actually the people still in Afghanistan who didn't make it out, people like organizations like the World Bank, countries like the UK and Germany and other parts of Europe have pledged millions and millions of pounds and euros and dollars and so on to help restart the economy and also give international aid. However, the clause in that is that it won't be transferred through the Taliban. And that makes it a lot harder because a lot of the banks aren't operating. So there is a tough impact on how money is moved around in Afghanistan. And only just today, the World Bank have said that they won't be continuing that funding unless, there's a change on the new rule, which is the fact that children of the secondary school age, girls in particular, can't go to school. The UK also pledged over 200 million pounds. Yes, that's correct. But it's tough because they aren't able to channel those funds through international aid because of the huge banking crisis, which is a part of the wider economic problems that the Afghan government, or should I say the Taliban rule, is facing at the moment.
Well, Lape, thank you so much for joining us and giving us that update. We appreciate your time as always on Newsday.